As of a few days now, Mike Pompeo is the United States of America's 70th Secretary of State. Secretary of State, the nation's chief diplomat, the man who represents the face of America to the world, the man who negotiates international laws, the man who works for peace. Mike Pompeo is Secretary of State. Mike Pompeo is also a straight-up bigot. And let's talk about how much of a bigot Mike Pompeo is to begin with. Okay, let's talk about the fact that he once accused Muslims all across the country, not only Muslim leaders, but just ordinary people, of being complicit in the Boston Marathon bombing. Now, imagine if he had said that about Christians after the Army of God blew up abortion clinics or after an abortion doctor was murdered. Imagine if he had somehow tried to tie those acts of violence to the entire Christian faith. Imagine how it would sound if someone had said the silence from the best-funded Christian advocacy organizations and many churches across America is absolutely deafening. Imagine if he had said that that supposed silence, actually Muslim groups condemned the bombing as soon as the Muslim connection was learned in it, quote, casts doubts upon adherents of the Christian faith, or that he said Christian leaders were, quote unquote, potentially complicit in the bombing, as Pompeo said of Muslim leaders. Or imagine if he spoke about Judaism the way he spoke about Islam and said there are organizations and networks here in the United States tied to radical Judaism in deep and fundamental ways, because that's what he said about Islam. He said they're not just in places like Lebanon and Uganda, but in places like Coldwater, Kansas, and small towns throughout America. Now, this bigot is not just a Muslim hater, although he is most certainly that. He is also bigoted against LGBT people. And let me give you an example. He opposed repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the United States military, saying, quote, we cannot use our military to promote social ideas that do not reflect the value of our nation, end quote. In other words, he was saying that homosexuality or alternate sexuality is a social idea rather than an orientation, and that it is somehow against the values of our nation. He also, when the Supreme Court issued its pro-marriage equality ruling, called it, quote unquote, a shocking abuse of power. He said America has worshipped other gods and called it multiculturalism. We'd endorsed perversion and called it an alternative lifestyle. That's as bigoted against gay people as it gets. And this bigot is now Secretary of State, thanks to Republican President Donald Trump and Republicans in the Senate. But Republicans don't get all the credit. In fact, Mike Pompeo would not be Secretary of State today if he hadn't received help from Democrats. Now, specifically the Democrats in the Senate who enabled, because the Republicans didn't have the votes without them, the Democrats in the Senate who allowed this bigot to become Secretary of State include, or in fact are, Heidi Heitkamp, Senator Joe Donnelly, Senator Joe Manchin, Senator Claire McCaskill, Senator Doug Jones, and Senator Bill Nelson. These Democrats have placed a bigot in the Secretary of State's office. But to be fair to Mike Pompeo, he is not just a bigot, he is other horrible things as well. For example, he is openly pro-torture. He does not, in other words, respect international law, because international law forbids the use of torture. So does U.S. law, for that matter. But nevertheless, he said of the people who ran CIA black sites where torture was committed, quote unquote, these men and women are not torturers, they are patriots. Now, you think you've learned everything horrible there is to know about Mike Pompeo? Not a chance. He also doesn't believe in climate change. He's also opposed the Paris Accord, saying, quote, it puts an undue burden on the United States of America. And when President Obama passed that accord, he called it bowing down to radical environmentalists and accused President Obama of, quote, a perverse fixation on achieving his economically harmful environmental agenda. He called it worshiping a radical environmental agenda. That's why Pompeo was often called the Koch brothers' favorite congressman when he was in Congress, because he got more money from them and the fossil fuel industry than anybody else. And they're still helping him. I'm going to play you a clip from a group that is funded by Robert Mercer, the guy behind Cambridge Analytica, and the guy behind Steve Bannon. This group, and I'm looking for the name now because I'm blanking on it. This group, Secure America Now, is backing Mike Pompeo. It was backing his nomination in part because he opposes the Iran deal, and they created this. Well, I'll let you judge it musically for yourself. To the tune of Jesse's Girl, they created this video. Let's play the video.
Iran is no friend. I know they've been no friend of mine, but lately they're in charge, so they've done a lot of crimes. Iran's got themselves a deal, and now all they do is lie, and they're watching us with their spies, and they're cheating on that new deal, I just know it, and they're taking advantage of literally everything. You know, I wish there was no Iran deal. I wish there was no Iran deal. How could we make a decision
like right, I can't stand anymore. Okay, let's stop, please, Mercy. I'll talk. Now, the fact is that, of course, they got the best studio musicians they could because the Mercers have billions, and they've been pushing this stuff out because they wanted Mike Pompeo to become Secretary of State. Secure America Now is their group, it turns out. Open Secrets has revealed that. Secure America Now, by the way, also had a video claiming that if we let in Syrian refugees, we would become the Islamic States of America. So they had a video trying to make you terrified, what that would look like. The Hollywood sign is replaced with Allahu Akbar, and the Statue of Liberty is wearing a burqa. This is a kind of low-quality, bigoted people that are now represented in the Secretary of State's office by Mike Pompeo. But let us not forget those Democratic senators, and let's ask ourselves why the party allowed them to do it, why they haven't been chastised. You know, we're told that the Democratic Party shouldn't apply litmus tests to politicians, but if there was ever a moment for a litmus test, it was during Mike Pompeo's confirmation hearings. But they haven't said a word in the Democratic Party, as far as I know, about this horrible vote. The question must be asked, if the party can't take a stand against hate, does it stand for anything?